latest from her corner of the streets. It's Sonnie's Corner with your host, Sonnie Johnson.
Y'all know what that music mean, right? Welcome back to Sonnie's Corner, but you know what that music mean. One of my greatest pleasures here on Sonnie's Corner is bringing on black men, allowing them to speak for themselves. I told you once, told you twice, I'll tell you again. Way too many people try to speak for them on their behalf as a voice for. No, they have their own voices, and I love bringing them to you here on Sonnie's Corner. This man is no exception. Sometimes a politician scares me, right? I'm going to tell you what that fear is about in a second, because this dude scared me a little bit, right? So sometimes a politician scares me. And he definitely fits that mold, but I want to let him come in and introduce himself. The one and only Gregg Dixon, Marcel for Congress. We're going to go by the Twitter handle so everybody knows how to find you. How you doing, brother? Welcome to Sonnie's Corner. Thank you so much for coming.
Hello, Sonnie. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored. I've been looking forward to this conversation. But since you are a first-time guest, this is what we do here on the show. We open it up and we let you start the conversation. So you could tell the people about yourself, tell them about what you're doing, or you can just start up on a topic that is near and dear to your heart. Whichever way you want to take it, the floor is now yours, and we'll follow up the conversation after. So there you go. Open up.
Well, I'm a multi-generational child of the South, so I'm always going to introduce myself first. My name is Gregg Marcel Dixon. You can just call me Marcel. I am a teacher. I was born in Savannah, Georgia, but I'm a native of South Carolina in the Low Country, right across the bridge from Savannah, Georgia, in a rural coastal district of South Carolina named Jasper County, in a small town named Ridgeland. And I am running to become the U.S. representative in the House and Congress for South Carolina's 6th Congressional District against James Clyburn. Because after 30 years of being in power, Congressman Clyburn's district, where I have lived my entire life, is the 6th poorest in the nation. After 30 years, 6th poorest in the nation out of 435 districts total. After 30 years, there's no excuse for that. So I am running to bring better to my people. And one of the ways I know that I could bring better to my people, and when I say my people, like Americans, but all people, is by making this country do what it was supposed to have done centuries ago, and that's repair the damage that has been done to black Americans. And my district, being a majority black American district, is where I would like to begin.
I want to tell you why you scare me, right? So most politicians, when you hear them and they're giving their speech, they have their talking points in place. You know, you can kind of map out what they're going to say because they all sound alike. I started listening to your interviews. And I was like, oh my goodness, he is actually listening to, like, his responses are what black people say to me every day. Like they're not worried about a lot of the conversations that we find in mainstream politics and mainstream news. Those are not the conversations that the average black person is having. And through your responses, I could tell that you are very, very much aware of that. And I don't want to lead you with any specific one. I just kind of want to ask you, what do you think the difference is between what you hear on the ground in our communities as opposed to how it is presented politically?
Well, what I hear on the ground a lot, of course, we have the issues that probably are of concern to Americans of all racial and ethnic groups. You know, lack of housing, quality, affordable housing, failing schools, poor infrastructure. But those things obviously are in a deficit in majority black communities. We're always going to get the worst of any issue that this country has. However, what I hear that the mainstream media does not want people to know is that our people are not in support of things that the Democrats largely, and I'm running as a Democrat, And because I'm running as a Democrat, and because the Democrats would not even exist as a viable political party without the votes of my people, my parents, grandparents, and great grandparents, I have the right to criticize them however I choose, and I will do that. The Democrats will have you believe that black Americans are largely in favor of illegal immigration. They are not. Many black Americans are furious about how illegal immigrants have broken our nation's laws, have pretty much invaded black communities, and have taken a little bit of resources to which we have had access. It's not their fault that black Americans are largely a wealthless group, but they are now capitalizing upon our position as being a wealthless group and taking a little bit of resources that our grandparents and great-grandparents fought to get, but we are still not able to get access to, but somehow they are. That's one. Number two, you would think that black Americans are largely in favor of some of these policies that would really lead to gun confiscation. But no, many black Americans, especially in the South, especially in South Carolina, are gun owners and want to keep their guns. They support legislation that would be common sense to keep guns out of the hands of violent people, to have people educate themselves so they can respect guns, but confiscating guns, banning certain weapons, by and large, black people are not in favor of that. And also, a lot of black people, a lot of them have felt that the Democrats have taken us for granted by simply saying to us, the Republicans are bad, and you ought to vote for us, because if you don't vote for us, you'll get a Republican. That's not flying with a lot of black people. And the younger you go in the generations, the more you start to hear that the Democrats nor Republicans deserve my vote unless they're bringing policies specifically for black Americans. They will not get our vote. That is I hear that all the time.
I think you hear that a lot more too when they stop calling us black and just reduced all of us to people of color. I think that's when you saw a lot of black people waking up like, oh no, that's not a game we're like interested. We're not interested in playing that game. I think you started seeing a lot of people wake up when they started using that designation and calling us people of color. One of the things you push that you keep at the forefront, and this is another one of the things that scared me about you. You go to Clyburn. You know what I'm saying? You go, you find him and you ask him questions and you hold him accountable. And that is some of the greatest video that I have seen. I'm serious. This is where I'm like, I'm not supposed to like politicians like this. But when you're going up and the forefront of your conversation is that there are serious problems that need serious solutions. So you're not wasting your time. You're not showboating. You're actually bringing specific problems up. So what is it that you think needs to be at the forefront of any conversation if they're looking to specifically target districts, especially districts with majority black vote?
Well, one is reparations. And I get really tired, and this is good news here, Sonnie. A lot of the people, black people, are starting to say reparations a lot more. It went from being something that pretty much every person who's a black American, and I need to be very clear, when I say black American, I'm talking about freedmen. Those are black Americans who are descendants of American slaves. These are black people who are not of any immigrant background. We are the descendants of the people who built this nation, were enslaved by this nation, fought time and time again to protect this nation, but were for centuries government-sanctioned, oppressed, and terrorized by this nation. I speak to black Americans all the time. And as of 3 years ago, a lot of black Americans felt that, of course, this country owes black Americans reparations, but they felt like it was something that was never going to happen. That is something else that is starting to change. And that is something I've seen within recent years. The R word, That's how one white Democratic strategist referred to it when she was speaking with me. She was like, I need you to get away from the R word. You won't even say reparations. Well, that is something that a lot of black Americans are saying a lot more. So first thing has to be reparations. And let me explain why. First of all, this country has done reparations before. They've done it for several Native American tribes, okay? They've done it for Japanese Americans who were interned. This country has even done reparations for Holocaust survivors, even though the only role we played in the Holocaust was stopping it. My great-grandfather, who is still alive, South Carolina born, but he lives in New York City, he is a World War II veteran. He helped to save the Jews from Hitler and the Nazis. Yet he came back only to see white veterans get trillions of dollars from the GI Bill that allowed them to buy homes, open businesses, become college educated, get retirement pensions, Social Security checks, health care. He got nothing. So when he gave birth to my grandmother, his daughter, and then my grandmother gave birth to my father, the only thing he had for us to inherit was poverty, trauma, and the debt that this country owes to us that his grandparents had inherited at the end of slavery when they were supposed to give us 40 acres and a mule. Black Americans, our rates of education have soared. We are the largest group we are the group that's most likely to become entrepreneurs. We, with the PPP loans, we only got 1% of it, but we've opened more businesses with the PPP loans than any other group. So this is not a matter of us not doing as we should or not working hard or not being frugal with our money. The data has made it clear. No matter how well-behaved we are, no matter how entrepreneurial we are, no matter how well-educated we become, no matter how big the check we bring home might be, a black college graduate who is a professional making six figures still has less wealth than a poor white high school dropout. It is because we are a wealthless group, because the wealth we were supposed to receive at the end of slavery, we never did. And when we built Black Wall Streets, we crawled out of the hole that this country had dug for us. They came and burnt them to the ground over 50 times, and then threw Jim Crow and redlining on top of that, while at the same time they were giving white Americans and European immigrants land via the Homestead Act, which today 48 to 60 million white American families can trace their wealth back to the Homestead Act. Most white educated professionals have a descendant who received the GI Bill, things that we as Black Americans should have had and then some, but were unjustifiably excluded from receiving. So reparations is a necessity, especially when you look at the fact that we're 15 to 20% of the population, conservatively speaking, but we are over 55% of the homeless. We have the highest eviction rate, the highest rate of auto repossession. We've lost or had stolen 15 million acres of the 16 million acres of property our grandparents fought to get and fought to keep, and nothing has been done about that. We are heading to being a permanent underclass in this society. So reparations is where it begins for us and really where it ends.
Okay, see, okay, this is like I'm figuring out how I want to come, because I'm not a representative reparations like pusher. Like, there's not, that to me isn't what I'm looking for, but the way you shaped it is what I'm looking for. Okay, let me understand. Let me show you. Let me try to explain what I mean by that. That the way that the kind of conversation has been shaped about reparations, it always goes back to slavery and how we were treated during slavery. For me, it's always about the things that you just talked about like how, okay, we came out of slavery, we start building ourselves. Y'all to come in after that and like burn it down. Y'all want to come in and that after that and then like tax our first generation wealth at 3 times the rates and just suck all that poverty. I mean, suck all of that wealth that we did start to build. You just want to suck it out. Then you want to put us in red lines and you want to make sure we can't get access to banking. We can't get access to loans. We can't have growth and entrepreneurship. Like, then you want to throw the only alternative we can have is government assistance and government interfering and government abuse and government boots on our neck constantly over and over again. And then we can go and we can serve and we can come back and we cannot reap the benefits from that. And time again, like you said, no matter what we do, no matter how great we are, no matter how much we contribute, that we are always the last, the unrepresented when it comes to any kind of advancement in this country. That is the thing that needs to be fixed. That focus, that understanding, and how government is used to do it. That needs to be the focus of what we really look at. And I don't even label that as reparations. I label that as that's the cure for America. You know what I'm saying? And if you're not going to go in and you're not going to reverse all of this stuff, understand what was done, and actually put correction to it, that anything short of that is a continuation of every wrong that's been used against us since we've been in this country. It's just a continuation until you pull it out by its root.
And let me tell you that. Let me hop on that. There's a lot of misinformation out there about reparations, and some of it is willful ignorance. There are some white people out there who willfully want to believe lies about reparations because they feel that black Americans belong to the bottom and they'll do anything to keep us there. Lyndon B. Johnson, when he was trying to do policies to solve poverty, he said he had came to the conclusion that the only thing you have to do to a poor white person is tell them that they're better than the best Negro. And he said they won't notice you're picking their pockets. And then he said, hell, give them a person to look down upon and they'll empty their pockets for you. So we've always had white people in this country who don't, even if it hurts them, will be satisfied with black people being to the bottom, even if they're hurt by it. So those ones, I can't do nothing for. I have no interest in doing anything for them. However, there are white people who are just genuinely misinformed. There are even black people who are genuinely misinformed about reparations. And I need to clarify some lies. One, reparations does not come from any white citizen. It does not come from taxes. It is a debt that is paid by the federal government. America is a monetary sovereign, meaning it can never run out of money and it can never not pay its bills. We've had conservative federal chairman of the Federal Reserve say that, and we've had liberal chairs of the Federal Reserve say that, Alan Greenspan and Ben Bernanke. And that means that the federal government does not operate off of taxes. State governments do. The federal government, as we see now, as we saw during the Trump administration, we were going through historic tax cuts. And yet, we were able to send a stimulus check to over 300 million adults. Not just once, not just twice, but 3 times. We were able to give an increase to hundreds of millions of Americans who were claiming unemployment. We were able to pay out loans that the majority would not have to pay back, so they were really grants to millions and millions and millions of American businesses. We were able to put in billions of dollars to finance the development of a vaccine and then distribute them and educate people about them, which ran us up into the trillions. At the same time, we were fighting a war over which we were spending billions of dollars every month. And then right now, as we speak, we've already sent trillions of dollars to Ukraine, and it hasn't even been a month. No one ever asks from where is this money coming. No one ever concerns themselves with the debt, because we know, like any person who even studies American economics for even a second, that debt is really what we call U.S. Treasury bonds, yellow dollars that banks and credit unions buy, and the American government pays them interest on those yellow dollars, and that is how we're able to get loans, and that pumps money into the economy. And at any time the federal government wants, they can take those yellow dollars and give them the green dollar bills, with which most of us are more familiar. So it comes from the federal government. The federal government can pay it, and it's not for all black people. It's only for those of us who are descendants of American slaves. It's not just for slavery, but it begins there. But like you said, it went up until the 1970s where you had laws on the books where it was legal to discriminate against black Americans. And you also made a good point where you said it's good for all of us. A study by City Financial is one of the largest financial service providers in the world. So big that they're considered a bulge brain, meaning that if they fail, the global economy would be in danger. City Financial did a group saying that anti-black racism had cost the United States of America $16 to $17 trillion. America's total value, GDP, is $19.2 trillion. That means we would be twice as rich right now had this country paid us reparations in the year 2000. Imagine how much money we've lost, probably beyond the trillions, if we go back to the 1700s. Not paying black people reparations has made America a poorer nation, a more divided nation, and a nation that is more insecure because Russia and China, Iran, and all these other countries, even North Korea, the main thing they target when it comes to America is the fact that we are a nation that is internally divided. So people like to say they feel the issue of reparations to be divisive. No, it would actually be a unifying factor to make this country more whole. And instead of people asking if we can afford it, which we definitely can, I want to let people know we cannot afford not to do it.
So again, I'm one of those people that is very, very, very much concerned with our debt and our deficit and our government spending and our ability to sustain it. And I am very, very consistent with that through all administrations. So I am definitely one of those people that is very concerned with that being an issue. And to me, it is like, even if you give, like, this is why I don't push the cash value of it, and I don't fight against it. So you're not going to fight me like I want to fight you why reparations shouldn't be given. I am a descendant of slavery, but that is not my issue, and I'm not going to push for it, nor am I going to fight against it. What my issue is reversing the law, the in regulatory form, in legislative form, in taxation form. Like, what we have in our communities is a accumulation of 100 years of this stuff, and it's never been purged, it's never been looked at, it's never been dissected. And these are like local level kind of assessments, not federal level, you know? Like, these things have to be done on the ground. They have to be done in the epicenter of where I would call it just blatant corruption and disrespect of the American Constitution, where those things took place. Because in each area, you're gonna find different abuses. Well, some areas, like we know, using Tulsa as, you know, the prime example, they were burnt down. And when you look at that circumstance, that situation, and you assess how that should be looked at, that's a localized thing that should be assessed locally. But if you look at like a Black Wall Street, where I'm from in Jackson Ward, it wasn't violently brought down. It began to decay once it started moving into progressive policy, once the taxation moved in, once the regulation moved in, once they started drowning out conservative kind of empowerment and that kind of thinking, that kind of ideology. So those communities weren't destroyed by blatant racist, you know, violence. They were destroyed by the slow decay of progressivism. Those things need to be assessed locally, and the regulatory, the legislative, and the taxation burden that have been put in place for decades in those areas, those things need to be pulled out by their roots.
So the thing is, every single person who's a descendant of American slaves, or sometimes I refer to them as free men, and sometimes I'll just say Black Americans, all of our communities, the ones that exist, but we also got to think of what could have existed but never had the opportunity to do so. And we have to remember, We would,
No,
yeah, right.
most
We were
definitely. I'm
born.
sorry. I don't want to cut you off. I like to take my time for my audience to understand. Like it's put on us as the black community like we never tried. Like we never attempted. We just gave up. Like, no, we did try. We did attempt. And not only did we try, not only did we attempt, we accomplished. We created. We innovated. Stop with the historical aspect that leaves out the greatness of what we have done in this country. To understand that we were purposely targeted to have that taken away. That's not made up in our head. It's actually American history. When we're talking about systemic racism, that's what we're talking about. Like it is not that we never tried, we never wanted, we never attempted. We did all those things and we accomplished. It's what the government did to us after that we are talking about and focusing on. So I want my audience to really understand that before I let you go forward. I'm sorry.
No, you're right, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It was the fact that there were laws on the books specifically to deprive us of even having the opportunity to form other Black Wall Streets. Jackson Ward, where you are, was one of the Black Wall Streets. Tulsa, Overton, and Florida. There were so many others that I'm not going to name them all right now. Had they been allowed to flourish, we as Black Americans, even without reparations, even though most of us at the time were functionally illiterate, we didn't have a penny in our pocket, and we were going through daily state-sanctioned government terrorism, we were still able to build Black Wall Street that, had they been allowed to flourish, would have made New York City look like a one-stoplight town. But that was not the case. But you do bring up something that is now about which we need to speak about the dangers of quote-unquote progressivism. Now, I don't like to refer to myself, I don't like when people say progressives and centrists. The reason why, because usually when you say progressives, they mean you support health care, Medicare for all, which I do, but they also mean you support things like abortion. I do not support that. They also mean you support a pathway to citizenship. I do not support that. So I want to talk about what's happening right now that's hurting the Black community. Outside of the fact that we don't have reparations, we do have policies that people are calling progressive, which for Black people are dangerous and would actually be regressive. Right now, you have Black people in our communities that are starting to become gentrified. Now, when you hear gentrification, you usually automatically think of a middle, upper-class white family moving to a historic Black neighborhood, running up the property taxes, and the Black family has no choice but to leave. And that has happened. But when I say gentrification, I'm talking about the one that doesn't get talked about in the media a lot. I'm talking about the flood of illegal immigrants that have been coming to Black neighborhoods that are impoverished, that are lacking resources, such as neighborhoods throughout my entire district. Here are some facts about Clyburn's district. We have the highest eviction rate in the country. We have some of the lowest performing schools in the country, okay? We have some of the communities with the highest levels of food deserts and healthcare deserts in the country. We have the most toxic water in the country in North Charleston. I can go on. But now, what is Clyburn pushing to do right now as we speak? Is he pushing for issues to solve that? Is he pushing for Black Americans, the Gullah Geechee? We are a Creole group here who were known for living in fishing seaside villages. Our land was stolen. He did legislation to provide land for Catawba Native Americans who were former enslavers. They got 20 acres of land to build a multi-million-dollar casino from which they would get billions of dollars. Yet he's done nothing for Black Americans to get our land back. But even more insulting is what he's doing right now. There's a bill called New Deal for New Americans. Now, it sounds very romantic, New Deal for New Americans, but it's actually insidious. It's a bill that will give illegal immigrants 11 to 20 million federal protected class status. They will not be able to be deported for over a decade. Not only that, if that's not bad enough, it will give them resources for housing, for education, for jobs. I take offense to that because Black Americans, Black men especially, have the highest unemployment rate. And under Biden, The unemployment rate has dropped for every group, but it has increased for Black Americans. And for Black men, it has soared. So now you got Clyburn wanting to make sure that illegal immigrants get jobs when studies have shown the higher the level of immigrants, legal or illegal, the higher the unemployment rate becomes for Black Americans, the lower our wages, the higher our incarceration rates, and the lower our marriage rates. You got Black Americans who are the most likely to be homeless. That means a person coming to this country illegally and have a roof over their head are more likely to keep that roof over their head than a Black American who built this nation. And yet Clyburn is in support of giving illegal immigrants resources to get housing. But I have not seen a single piece of legislation that he's authored for Black Americans. So I am against progressivism because it's a farce. It's a lie. It's just another way to sell Black Americans out. It's a pig with lipstick on. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing. And a lot of Black people support it. Well, at least Black Democratic voters support it because it sounds like it's something that is convivial, something that is benevolent. But they're doing policies specifically for every other group while at the same time telling my people they can't do anything for us. And we are the group that's to the bottom. And whereas the wealth for every group, whites, even though whites have over average the most wealth, Asian Americans, Hispanics have risen, Black American wealth is dropping. Over 20% of Black families are in the negative, and it's increasing. Yet there's not a single piece of legislation for us addressing that, but the progressives are there trying to give all the resources and protection to illegal immigrants. So the same way you said that sometimes these so-called progressive ideals destroy Black communities in the past because they too can be an act of anti-Blackness and white supremacy, so is that happening nowadays as well.
And I just be clear, the reason that I say progressivism and I use that term is because this started with Woodrow Wilson. Like when he was the father of progressivism in America, and this is when the government started being segregated. All these laws actually started being put on the books federally when it comes to that abuse of the Black community, and that's why I make sure that I always give credit where credit is due to the Progressive Party that started it. The ideology, I should say. This is why I could just keep. I just could.
Birth of a Nation. Just
I
want to
could.
say that too.
Yeah, I could just keep talking to you, and that's what I said. That's why when I get a politician that like you, I just find it dangerous because I like what you're saying. I love your ability to understand the content of what you're talking about and the passion you put behind it. So I'm definitely going to continue to check you out and stalk you and support your campaign. So you can go ahead and give all your information out now and let everybody know what you're doing. And it's just been a pleasure to have you here.
All right, I will do that. Thank you. So Gregg, Marcel, Dixon, everyone. I'm running against James Clyburn, and yes, I am running on a campaign to repair Black America, to fix America. Reparations are for Black Americans, but they're truly going to be what that all Americans need in order to save and unite our nation. This nation, I was raised to repair what I damaged, and the American government inflicted damage on the Black community that needs to be repaired. But I'm also for making sure that the resources that our government has goes to American citizens, not illegal immigrants, and not rewarding people in our country illegally for breaking our laws and then thinking those same people are going to make upstanding American citizens when they didn't even get into America respecting our laws or having the ideals of American citizens. I'm for protecting all beating hearts and making sure that children, especially Black children, the most aborted children, have a chance at life, but also after they're born have a high quality life. And I'm also for making sure that we as Black Americans are able to keep our guns, because if any group needs it, it is definitely us. If you want to support my campaign, you can please make a donation, because I'm going up against an establishment candidate. So a donation can be made at marcelforcongress.com/donate. And if you have any questions or comments, you can email them to me at repairblackamerica@marcelforcongress.com, or you can even send me a text message, and I do respond to them. Give me about a week or so, but at 843-940-8983. Again, Gregg Marcel Dixon, running to repair Black America in order to make America great.
I can't wait you got to come back. We got to have another conversation. This was so awesome. And like, I have like 1,000,001 things I want to ask you right now. And I'm so sad that it's over. So we're going to have to get you back.
But I look forward to it, definitely.
All right. Thank you so much for coming through. We'll be back in just a moment. Oh, fine conversations.